What is going on, YouTube? Are bigger, beefier subs always better? Or are there some cases where the less beefy sub is going to be better for your system? Stay tuned to find out. What is going on, YouTube? Welcome to another video. Thank you so much for checking in. Now, CT Sounds sent me some really cool stuff to make some videos with. So we're going to be running a test in today's video. We have two 10-inch Strato subs, and we have two 10-inch Tropo subs. Now, of course, these Stratos are bigger, just overall much beefier subs. Now, I know a lot of people getting into car audio want the biggest, beefiest sub they can possibly get. And in this video, I'm going to talk about why that may not always be the case, and we're going to run some tests to see if there are some situations where maybe getting these two smaller guys is actually going to be better for your system than getting these two beefy guys. Now, I just got to give a huge shout out to CT Sounds for sending me this. Really appreciate it. It really helps out the channel, helps me bring content to y'all. Please smash that thumbs up. I want to show CT Sounds that this stuff will go to good use. And if you want to check out anything in this video, there'll be links in the description below. So let's check out what we got here. First off, we have this CT Sounds CT2001D. This is their 2000 watt mono block amplifier. We're going to be hooking this up in my truck. Reason for your average person going out, buying maybe two 10s, probably not going to be running, 5,000 watts, nothing crazy. In many cases, you could hook this up and get by with maybe just an upgraded alternator, or maybe just an extra battery. Maybe not even that if you have a car that already has two batteries in it. Then we're going to be hooking up the Tropos, seeing how loud we can get it. Then hooking up the Stratos, doing the same thing. And we're going to see if on less power, maybe these guys might actually get louder. Okay, first of all, let's check out the TS parameters on the Tropo sub. So we have the Tropo 10D4, FS 41.50. So not an overly low FS, kind of on the high side. SPL is 86.42 dB, and we have 11 millimeters of X max. All right, here is the Strato specifications. We, of course, have the Strato 10D4. So we do have a lower FS of 38.20, but we also have a lower SPL of 83.9, but we do have more X max at 15 millimeters. And of course, there's a good deal of other parameters on there as well that we're not getting into. But basically, what that is telling me is that these Stratos probably going to be a little better as far as quality, and of course, they're going to handle more power, whereas these Tropos maybe not going to be quite as good when it comes to quality, but these things have a lot softer spiders, which means it's going to take less power to make volume. For this test, we are using this Scar box. Now, I've used these Scar boxes for a bunch of my tests. Reason I like them, they're built decently well, and they are tuned normally around kind of 36 hertz, whereas your normal cheap prefab box is normally tuned up into the 40s. Of course, 36 hertz, a lot more musical of a tuning than having it tuned really high. Another thing to think about is the voice coil size. Now, a more beefy sub will generally have a bigger voice coil. Now, what that means is this, of course, can withstand more heat and more power than somebody with a little bit smaller coil. That being said, when you have a bigger coil, that means the diameter is, of course, bigger. You can kind of see in there how big that coil is. Of course, this one is a lot smaller. Now, that plays into your spider. Of course, your spider, this guy right here, and your spider determines how much X-Max your sub has or how much it can move up and down. So generally speaking, if you have a bigger voice coil, that means you have less room for your spider, so your spider is smaller. So in order to get the same X-Max out of a sub with a bigger coil, either your basket needs to be wider where the spider connects, or your little ribs need to be taller. That is why people like Sundown, even though this ZV6 is an absolutely insanely massive sub, they stick with a 3-inch coil because it means they're able to have a super wide spider, which allows for optimal X-Max. Whereas this guy, like this American Base XFL, which has a, I believe, 3.5-inch coil, having that bigger coil means this spider is going to be a little bit smaller, so you're not going to get as much X-Max out of this guy as opposed to this guy. All right, we've got two of these Stratos hooked up in here, running off the CT Sounds amp. Got it all hooked up. I will say this amp actually pushes these things really well. Now I've got the box mounted. It will be staying in the exact same position. Now I know you could have it faced probably other ways to get a better score, but for the point of this, one, we can see it. Two, we're not changing it for the test on each pair of subs. So again, we're not trying to get the max score we can possibly get. We're just trying to see which sub gets louder. But like I said, this amp does do pretty good, so I'm going to show you a quick couple clips of these things playing. They sound really awesome in this box for just 2 tins on a 2000 watt amp. Check it out. You can see there, even though these guys do have a bigger voice coil, therefore maybe a little bit less spider, they have no problems with X-Max. These things really stretch out for being tins. Pretty cool, guys. Okay, for this test, we've got my dB meter hooked up, and we've got my SMD 8MM1 hooked up. That's going to tell us how much power we're pushing to the subs. My SBL meter is going to tell us how loud we get. So for each pair of subs, we're going to play these at 35, 40, and 45 hertz at some different volumes. So we're going to see between the frequencies which gets louder at which power output. Should be interesting. Also, I've been working on my big build for the show coming up. Been painting and stuff. That's why my hands are all dirty. I know somebody's going to comment that, so just letting y'all know. Also, yes, I have played these a little bit to let these spiders break in. All right, starting out with 35 hertz. Now we have this set to volume 25. We have my bass knob maxed out. This guy set, and this guy is set. Let's start out 35 hertz, see what it does. Okay, 35 hertz with the volume at 25. We got 426 watts, and we got a 125.8. We have this guy set to 30. Everything else kept the same. Okay, we pushed 1,088 watts, and we got a 129 even. Okay, we now have this set to 35. Everything else the same. All right, that maxed it out. The clipping light did pop up on this, so that means that is really as much as we're gonna push these, but we got 1,255 watts, and we broke up into a 130.1. Okay, I hope that test makes sense to y'all. Now we're gonna do it at 40 hertz and then 45 hertz. Exact same settings, just doing the same deal. Let's see what we get. 40 hertz, we have this set at 25. 311 watts, and we got a 126. I'm gonna bump this up to 30. 1,054 watts, and a 128.1. All right, gonna bump this up to 35. 1251 watts, and a 132.1. All right, we're gonna do a 45 hertz now. Volume over here set at 25. All right, it's saying 237 watts and a 124.5. Bumping this up to 30. 593 watts. And we got a 129.9. All right, bumping this up to 35. 962 watts. And we got a 131.5. Something interesting to note, even though we have all the settings the exact same on the head unit, on my bass knob, on the amp, as we increase our frequency, the impedance on the subs HEP is rising, so we are getting less power, even though everything is set the exact same. Just something to note. And of course, we're going to run the test the exact same way with the other subs as well. All right, well, this is kind of fun. So next up, I got to throw the smaller subs in here, give them a little bit to break in, and then we'll do the exact same test, and we'll see what the score is. We've got the Tropos hooked up now. I'll say another benefit to having smaller subs is they are way lighter, so much easier to transport around. And of course, these 10s, even though they're pretty beefy, not super heavy, but especially if you're pulling your box in and out of your car a lot or something like that, if you have some really heavy subs, that can make for a not fun experience. All right, these Tropos are in here. Played around with them a while to let the spiders break in, but they're already pretty soft. So let's get to some testing, guys, see how these things do. As stated, we're gonna run the exact same test at the exact same volumes, same settings, same everything. We'll see what we get. This is set to dyno power. We've got my dB meter on. And let's see, this is set to 25. Gonna start with 35 hertz and go from there. 449 watts. And we got a 124.9. Bumping this up to 30. So as you can see, our ohms, we're getting a lot less impedance rise with these subs. 1643 watts. And we got a 128.7. Bumping this up to 35. And we went up 2 clipping there. We got 1761 watts. And a 129.5. All right, bringing this back down to 25. We're gonna do 40 hertz. 349 watts. And we got a 126. Bringing this up to 30. 1418 watts. And a 129.4. Bringing this up to 35. 1605 watts. And a 131.7. All right, bringing this back down to 25. I'm gonna do 45 hertz. Our impedance really rising on that one. We got 232 watts. And a 122.9. Bringing that to 30. 903 watts. And a 130.4. And bringing this up to 35. All right, 1467 watts. And a 131.1. All right, y'all, I went ahead and totaled up the results between the subs. Let's check them out and see what ended up happening. Here are the results. Kind of interesting, guys. So I've got it all totaled up. 35 hertz, 40, and 45 hertz. And at the volume we had each one at. So let's see kind of what happened. First thing you'll notice, generally speaking, the Tropo, we got a little more power than we got with the Strato sub. That was just due to the fact that my impedance was not rising as much with the Tropos as it was with the Strato. That is just something interesting to note. But even though we were able to get more power at the volume to each sub, you'll notice on basically all of these. We actually lost a little bit on the score. Very, very little bit. Those were the same. We actually did gain a little bit here at 40 hertz at the 30 volume mark, but we actually ended up pushing a lot more power for whatever reason. Once we got to the 35 mark, even though we still pushed a lot more power, we actually lost a little bit. Over here at 45 hertz, we started out almost the exact same power, but we lost a little bit, a lot more power, and we gained about half a dB, a bunch more power, and we actually lost some. Okay, so what are these results telling us? It looks like for this test, having the bigger, beefier sub actually ended up really helping. Even though in most of the test, we put less power to the sub at each individual test. Even though the Strato actually took less power at each test, I guess having that bigger motor really helped out, and it helped us get a better score. So guys, I was wrong from what I thought in the initial beginning. Having the bigger, beefier sub did help even at those lower power points. Same all the way up until the amp was clipping, so very, very interesting. Now what that tells me is that, one, if you're wanting to buy one of these subs, definitely buy the Strato. You're going to spend more money, but one, you're going to get more volume out of it. Two, it's just going to be an overall tougher, probably better sounding sub. So that is really, really interesting. Now, I do think that my initial point does have some valid truth to it, but what I'm guessing, we would probably need a much more extreme difference between a softer sub and a bigger, beefier sub. Maybe I'll do that in the future. Maybe get a real soft, cheap sub, and we'll put that up against a really, really big and beefy, super stiff sub. Kind of see if that makes a difference. But y'all was not able to bust the myth for this test. Getting the bigger, beefier sub did help. That's gonna do it, guys. Remember, check out links in the description below to these products I used from CT Sounds. And we just want to thank CT Sounds again so much for helping me bring some videos to y'all. Probably do a giveaway with some of these here in the near future, so definitely stay tuned for that. All right, that's gonna do it for this video. Remember, as always, guys, keep basing on.